Now, I had mentioned NIL, and this is going to be our last topic of today, but name, image, likeness. We all know what NIL is. So NIL putting, this is a Nick Saban quote. He said, NIL is putting a canoe on top of our SUV to go to the lake. Didn't tie it down, took off, and just hope for the best. I think that's kind of where we are right now. And that is a quote from Nick Saban. Joel Klatt, big time Fox announcer, compared it to speeding on the highway. Maybe you're going 70 in a 70. Maybe I'm going 75. Maybe somebody's going 80. I'm going 85. But you know what? There's no regulations. And that's what's really frustrating. So I'm not sure if people are aware by now. If you're in the sports world, you probably have heard about Matthew Sluka. So Matthew Sluka went from Holy Cross to UNLV and reportedly promised $100,000 before eventually getting a contract from UNLV for $12,000 and ultimately receiving none of it. So Matthew Sluka has announced he will be out the rest of the season. He only received $3,000 of his $100,000 NIL deal, and basically was just like, you know what, I'm out, I'm done. And he had enough of that. So Joe, let me ask you about NIL real quick. We're not going to get into the weeds of it, but NIL is this wild, wild west. Anything goes. There's no rules. There's no regulations. I could give this player $1 million. I can promise this player $100,000. I will tell you, there was a guest in our chair across there last fall that played for Youngstown State that was promised X amount of money by an SEC school. Went there. That school did not deliver on that money. He went back into the transfer portal and now plays for a different Division I program. So the NIL world is something I've heard stories about firsthand. It's a very nasty world. It's good in a lot of ways, and it's deserved in a lot of ways, but it's also unregulated. What, if any, answers do you have for NIL? Name, image, likeness. We're treating these players like student athletes instead of employees. What say you on this?
College football makes a ton of money, and really very little money comes down to the people who are creating the end product.
Yeah.
I love the fact that players get to get a taste of what they're providing for the entertainment, for the fans. Now, the way that it works, where it splinters teams, people are chasing the dollar, they're playing the game differently.
Yeah.
It screws up, and maybe even in a good way, that you're not anchored to a specific team.
Yeah.
You can move around wherever you want. The more competition for a player, the more benefit you can put out. You can stock your team up based on what you're.
It's an open market
for sure. So to have schools be forced to pay more money for the players that they end up with, I think that's an overall good.
No, let me push back on that though, because it's not the schools right now paying these guys. It's collectives. And we're kind of familiar with that in a sense of we've had the guys from Penguin Collective, and they do things, like the way it should be done. They do things the right way. YSU is one of the few FCS programs that has a collective, but it's these collectives that are making the promises, going through the coaches, through recruiting, but it's not the actual schools that are paying these athletes. So
see, but I think that's the change that needs to happen.
That's the problem.
That's the problem is that there's no cost for the school. The recruiting was done just based on talent alone. And if it would cost a school to load up their ranks, I think that's what needs to change.
It's a lot of empty promises. Some are great, some are not. And, some schools do it the right way. I know Ohio State has gotten a lot of crap for the amount of money they paid, but they are taking care of their players. And there's no regulation to say, there's a cap. There's not like the salary cap on it, and there probably should be. But if you're doing, you've always said it's the people that are the most successful are the ones that attack the gray areas,
right?
That attack, but it's like there's no gray areas here. It's whatever goes. And I'm sure, behind the scenes, there's some rules, there's some regulations, but we don't know that. Like, but and it's like, how do you enforce this stuff? So,
and how do you plan for a team when half of your team can escape if somebody offers them some kind of incentive?
exactly. And to me, this is one of the things that, until it's fixed, is ruining college football. I think it's a good thing in the long run. Athletes should be paid. They should be able to cash in on their name, their image, their likeness. But if you're promising them money and you're not coming through on that, if you're a business owner, if you're a collective, if you're whatever, and these guys are moving from Massachusetts to Las Vegas or wherever, and then they think they're getting $100,000 and they get 3,000 and that's all they're getting. It's like, that's kind of a big
It's fraud.
F
It's
you,
like, yeah, heck
you know,
yeah.
to quote Joe Pesci, that's not a good effing friendship right there.
No, fish him.
That's yeah, seriously. So I don't have an answer for this, but the NCAA, the government, somebody better step in and fix this, because it's going to be, this is one of the first major cases of a football player quitting. He's actually quitting the team. He's basically saying, I am redshirting the rest of the year. I'm going to go in the transfer portal and then I'll figure it out. And I don't think this is the last time until this is fixed.